this video, I'm gonna cover how to create MySQL DB connection in Talend and also how we can um, export those connection into context file and how we can while creating them, how we can get the details of the connection from already existing context file. I'm gonna explain in this video. Here I just wanna mention people who came from PowerCenter or Informatica cloud background. For them to understand what is context, I am going to tell in a simple way. Context is nothing but it's a parameterization. So, how we are parameterizing in Informatica and how we use that parameters in mappings, all concepts, it's there in Talend also. So, but the naming convention for that parameterization is context here. And now I'm just gonna show you this MySQL connection. I already created this MySQL connection and imported some tables also, but I'll show you what are the details we have to mention to create the MySQL connection. So if you click on this, you will get this here, right? Basically, uh, I wanna show first this thing like how we can create the DB connection. If you see here, if you click on this DB connection, this will be there in the metadata. So if you click on this under this DB connections, if you click on that, right click, then you will see the create connection, and here you have to give the name and everything details. So I already created one. I will show you what are the details you have to mention to connect with the MySQL. So I have given the connection name as MySQL underscore Kirti. This is my connection name and the type is MySQL. Here you can see different database types are there. So whatever you are using, those database you have to mention. And I have used them. I'm using MySQL in my system. I have MySQL. So my DB version is MySQL 5. Because I am using 5.5 version of MySQL. I have installed that one, and this string of connection, it will come automatically, so no need to give any value here. The login credentials of the DB you have to give at the time of creation. What are the credentials you have given for logging the DB? Those connections you have to mention here. The login is basically it's root by default, and the password, right, you have to give that password. And server is localhost because I install in my personal uh, CP CPU. So my personal system, I have given the localhost, and port is automatically it will take 3306 by default. So I've given same thing. And database, whatever database you have created inside of the MySQL, that one you have to give. I just created in MySQL with my name one database. So I'm going to connect to the to this database. After that, this is additional parameters, it will come automatically. I haven't given any value. And if you check, like if you wanna check the connection is successful or not, this just click on this test connection. So if you get this sorry, the database connection is successful, this message if you get means our connection is created successfully. Now you understood, right, how to create the MySQL. And now um, I'm going to show you how we can create a context file for this parameters, like the DB connection details is there, right? Whatever here I have given, I'm just going to create as a context file, because um, next time if I wanna create uh, create this DB connection again in some QR somewhere, so that time this context file is going to help us. No need to mention everything these details again and again, so we can import from that context file. I'll show you that also. So now I'm going to create a context file for this connection details. So I'm just clicking on this export as a context. Create a new repository context or reuse an existing repository context. So if already existed, then we can use this, but I wanna create a new one. Just the same thing, I'm giving name of the context, and I'm not giving purpose description. You just give that if you want, and I'm going to give finish. So if you see here, all parameters, I mean all the details, it's going to stored as stored as a context parameters. If you see here, context dot my SQL KT login, this login details, everything it's changed here. If you wanna see where it's the file has created, just go to this. I'm going to click finish. Yes. Okay. Yes. So it's created the context. If you see here in the job design, after that we have context. Here if you see the context file MySQL Kirti has created. So here um, you can see the I'll expand this. So if you see here, it's giving some name MySQL Kirti server, and it's the value it has given. So this is the parameter name, and this is the value of that parameter. This is type of the parameter value. So the data types will be there, right? So that one it has given. So this is default one. If you wanna create for some other, like one is for dev environment, and one is for QA, like that you can mention the environments, so it will create that, and you can make this as default and all. Like which one you will use as a default, you can select that. So if I use if I check the dev, then it will take default values of dev. So this will be useful when the time of migration. So wherever like we for dev, one connection will be there, QA one connection will be there, and production if another connection will be there, because databases connections is going to change for all the environments, right? So that time it will be useful. Okay. So if you give the like this, we based on the environment we can use the context. It's just asking for if any already existed connection, with that connection existed jobs with that connection, it will propagate all these to uh, that connections. If you see here, I already have some one mapping here. So earlier its details are there, now it's changed to context, it's propagated to all the jobs. You are seeing, right, this host and database username, all this connection uh, details, it's converted to the context parameters. Okay. So I think for this I have created the context. Yes. And this connection I will open one more time. Okay, and now suppose you don't want this, then this context, if you don't want to uh, create like this, you want to give some values there and then itself, then you can revert this context again. So if you see again the details came, you can change it here if you don't want to use the context. And if suppose I wanna export these details, I don't want these details again, I just want to export from some context, I just created now one context file, right? If suppose like that any other context file is existed, then we can export that by keeping like reuse an existing repository context. And then if you give some MySQL Kirti, and then it's just going to ask here the additional params, like if you see here the variable is there, right? So for this you have to mention the fields, like these are already created in the context file, so which one we have to map with which one in the connection, we have to mention here the mapping we have to mention. So the database means I'm going to give this to the database. Login means login. Here I just exported from the connection, right? That's why it's showing MySQL underscore Kirti underscore server, some meaningful names. But sometimes if we created the context manually, then these names will not be like this. So for identification it will be tough. Now for now it's easy because it's there like already, with the names. So these are the context parameters, and these are the we are going to connect with the database connection, right? Those values we have to map here, from where which context parameter we need to take that value, we are mapping here. So port is like port. Okay, and next I'll expand this one. So if you see and finish, so default is dev, right? So it's exported. So if you see here, the context is changed. Okay, these we are taken from, you know, from tech context file. My condition is successful. So you understood, right? I just first time I exported this as a context, is whatever I have given those values, I just created as a context. So exported as a context, it has created one context file, MySQL underscore Kirti. So this is like a parameter file, it's just created here in the under context, and I just use next time I reverse that context. So normal values again, the first whatever given those values, it's shown here. And after that again I just imported that from already existing context, these values I don't want to use that values, I just wanna import it from MySQL underscore Kirti this context. Basically sometimes we can here we just exported as a context, but sometimes it already existed means the naming conventions maybe sometimes it's different. So you know we have to match the parameters whatever there in the file to this parameters login password server we have to mention, and then we have to test that connection. So like this we can create the context for the DB connections. I think everybody understood that. Please let me know the comments if you have any doubts. Just keep in the comment section.